Hello, everyone. Vinod here again. I wanted to talk a little bit about how the so-called native speakerism has negatively affected the students' English language learning and development. The English language teaching methods that advocate for native speaker English as a model for English language learners has been questioned long ago. The studies show that English is a global language, therefore everyone owns it. This indicates that there are different Englishes. When we say Englishes, there is diversity in English language use in terms of language aspects, such as pronunciation, vocabulary, syntax, context, and most importantly, in terms of socio-linguistic realities. When we look at the number of English language speakers around the world, the speakers who speak English as an additional language outnumber the speakers who speak English as the first language. This teaches us a huge lesson, and this teaches the lesson to the English teachers around the world as well, that students need to be aware of different Englishes or global Englishes to be able to negotiate and communicate with diverse English language speakers. But unfortunately, even though research in the field of English language education, linguistics, and applied linguistics clearly shows the benefits of making its students aware of different Englishes, and also shows the benefits of contextualizing English language teaching and learning. In many contexts, students and teachers are still opt for learning native speaker English. For example, I would like to talk about the study that I recently conducted in one of the South Asian countries, which is already published, shows that university English teachers preferred to teach American or British English, but not the English that is found in their own context. The findings revealed three reasons for that. The first reason is that the English used in the US and the UK is legitimate and used everywhere in education. The second reason that the teachers talked about was that the American or British English is used in the international English language testing system, that is IELTS and TOEFL. And the third reason that participants also talked about is that the American English is used in the classroom, and also they prefer to use American English because America is politically powerful. However, the teachers admitted that they would like to use locally available instructional materials while teaching English, which is surprising to me. How, on the one hand, teachers prefer to use the American or British English in their classrooms. On the other hand, they would like to use the locally available materials in English language teaching. The details of the study are found in the article, which I mentioned already is published. And I'm also presenting this research at the TESOL International Conference, which will be held in March 2023. This kind of situation does not only reside in the South Asian context, but also in the other contexts, such as the US, where I teach. I would like to share an event of my class, how the native speakerism, meaning that the native speaker English needs to be learned kind of notion, is deeply rooted in the student's mind. I teach first-year composition courses at one of the universities. In one of the classes that I taught last semester in 2022, most of the students were domestic and some of them were international. The students in this class were supposed to complete 3 major writing projects. The students were, normally working on two to three drafts of each project they develop based on the feedback that I provided and the feedback their peers provided. This time, along with a submission from our students on Canvas, the online portal which we use for instructional purposes at the university, I received a message which said, and I paraphrase here, that dear professor, I have tried my best to develop a writing project which took me so long. I'm sure there are many mistakes in this writing. Please forgive me if those writing mistakes upset you. This is because I'm not a native speaker of English. My English is not good. So please bear with me. And I replied, dear X, Y, and G, thank you for the message and your submission. However, I don't think anyone is a native speaker of academic writing and research writing skills. Everyone needs to learn or acquire them. That is why you, along with your classmates, have enrolled in this class. Therefore, I would love to see your ideas and identity, meaning the differences that you bring as a writer, not the English you use. Although I responded convincingly, it made me think about why native speakerism is still deep rooted in a student's mind, which of course demotivates them and creates a kind of imposter syndrome. The other question to think about is, whose responsibility is this to make students aware of the things that there is no single English whatsoever that works in all the contexts? The other question also comes in my head is that who is responsible to teach negotiation skills in communication rather than teaching or introducing students with the concept of so-called standard English? One of the reasons why students are not confident with English they use is that the textbooks and instructional materials they use while learning English are dominated by so-called standard English notion, which is, of course, out of context of the students. To avoid this kind of dominance, English language teaching and learning methods and materials that we use as the teachers need to be contextualized or decontextualized. We need to think about it. For this, teachers and curriculum developers and education policymakers are very, very responsible. So by the time we reached to the end of the semester, these students improved his writing a lot. He became one of the high achievers in the classroom. When we did the reflection class at the end of the semester, these students wrote, Professor, thank you so much for letting me know that the English and identity I bring in my writing is also important and valued in writing class. Anyways, the question is not it's not only about these students, but the question is all about why we don't train our students from the early education that there are diversities and differences in language, not only in English, but in all the languages. And why don't we teach them the communication skills and the negotiation skills rather than teaching them about so-called standard English, which ultimately trains the students to question the way people use English? I think it's a high time we did it. So English teachers' job is, I think, is to teach students and make them aware of different varieties of English so that they find it easier to communicate with different speakers of English in this multilingual context. Thank you. Thank you very much.